Hello.
Oh my God, we are back here once again for the next episode of A Conversation with Kely. Of course, we are talking about, as usual, this week's episode of The Traitors. And my God, what a doozy of an episode.
So good.
Yeah, there's a lot to get into with this one. But before we do get into all of that, I am here with my lovely new co-host, Allie, also the almost birthday girl. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I just went for a walk with Magoo today. Not too long because it was a little chilly out. But other than that, just been chilling. I did a comp for my org that I'm in. And my birthday's tomorrow, so excited for that. And I got my next gift from you, which I opened, which was amazing. And yeah, just
what'd you get?
chilling.
You should tell them. You should show them.
Oh yeah. I put
show
it on
the
one of my dressers.
Yes.
But I got this Iron Claw screenplay.
Yes.
I love the movie. And then yesterday I got my Broadway musical trivia book.
But you have two of those now.
I know. And then, because since
Amazon messed up.
I know, right? But I mean, I'll just give that one to you, the other one. Yeah. And then I also got the chocolate bars you got me.
Yes, a lot of good stuff going on. I don't have much going on my end, just chilling, working, vibing. And yeah, here to talk about this week's episode, which, like I said, I mean, we're going to have a lot to talk about, I think, with this one. Because if episode 4 was really the start of just how chaotic this season was about to get, this was on a whole other level, and I think maybe could have maybe surpassed that episode, I think, in terms of what the best episode of the show is so far. This was just such a incredible one. There was a lot of stuff here that we were kind of like building up to, but the way things kind of went, it did not go in the direction that I expected to go in. We end on this incredible cliffhanger as well. There is tons of drama going on within the castle. I mean, if you want great TV, again, the Traitors just really just keeps on giving, and this might have been the best one yet. But what did you think of this episode overall?
Oh, this season is just so good overall. This episode is just literally like amazing and top tier TV. And this season is literally the gift that keeps on giving.
Really is.
And it's just such a treat.
Yeah, definitely. I am really loving it a lot. Hold on one second.
Okay.
All right. So yeah, I think we should just go ahead and just get right into it. Like I said, there's a lot to talk about with this one. Oh my God, it's Timeless. I got it right this time. Timeless Mike motherfucking Jones. Yeah, so excited to have him here.
Timeless by Taylor Swift.
Yes, talk about this crazy episode that's going on. But Allie, go ahead and just kick this one off.
All right, so we get into breakfast.
See, I knew I'd get it right eventually. It took me a little bit, but...
So we get into breakfast, where Alan reveals to us that the Traitors did in fact attempt to murder Bergie, but due to him having a shield, there was no murder, and he is very much alive and will be arriving at breakfast.
Yeah, I mean, we knew that this was going to happen. I think in hindsight, this really wasn't the best move. I really think that Dan should have just listened to Parvati here and probably just go for like a John. I think that makes the most sense. Yes, I know he thought it was a waste, but like, especially considering what happens in this episode, very much not a waste.
They could have just went for like John, or maybe like even just a Kate because she's so new, or something like that.
Yeah, honestly, Kate makes the most sense, just like up and out pretty much,
Yeah, just because since she's not really like allies with anybody, she's just like there to cause shit.
She doesn't benefit anybody right now because she's brand new, so like might as well just take her out. But
yeah, literally. The first to arrive at breakfast are Kate, Parvati, and Shereé. Parvati is very nervous, hoping Bergie didn't have a shield and let this murder come off without a hitch.
Yeah, about that.
They discuss a bit who they think will be murdered, and Kate says she thinks it will probably be one of the Bravo girls because she's here.
Yeah, Kate knows, like, no one wants me here. I gotta go.
Kate says people are going to start looking at her, but she's thinking she's just got here and is still trying to remember the people's names, so she needs them to just pass the toast.
And this is why I love Kate on both of these seasons. She just has this like no fucks given energy, and it continues in this season, and it's so great to see. You know, we always see people taking these shows very seriously and people who like get bitter when they're voted out. Kate just doesn't care. She's just here for the vibes. She's just here for the chaos, and I'm very much loving that. So I think Kate honestly fits very well into this cast, especially in the middle of it all. I think it's very fun to have her here.
She's just so chaotic because she doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
The next to come out are CT, Dan, and Sandra. Dan says this is a huge risk and gamble to murder Bergie for a bunch of reasons, but the main one is that he told everyone in front of him that he was going to write his name down next time. And number two, everyone will pin this murder on him, but if he wants a huge reward, he's got to take some huge risks, which is what he's doing right now.
Yeah, I mean, this is what Dan does. Like, he's very showy. He does stuff like this that's like really, really crazy. And I think if this was another show, I think that a move like this could really have worked. But I think just considering obviously the fact that he had a shield and the fact that he didn't know if Bergie actually wasn't safe, I think he should have just, you know, waited, take Bergie out next, like take him out next week. You can absolutely do that and just go for like John here, which would have been, you know, completely just like, as usual, causing confusion. It's like he just completely lost sight of the narrative in this episode because Dan all season has been like, we need to make sure we go for somebody that causes confusion. And here he wanted to just kind of just do like the biggest and most flashiest stuff possible. And I think it really hurt him.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, it was good on paper, but it just was like,
yeah,
why did you do that?
I think everything he does in this episode is honestly good on paper, but just execution wise, no.
Dan asks Kate how it feels to be back in the swing of things, and she says it's so weird, and she doesn't know why she did this to herself, and she says she thrives when she's most miserable, so she thinks that she's going to do well. CT says it's going to be nice to have some fresh eyes here. I will say one thing. I do think I could see someone like a CT or a Sandra winning.
Yeah.
Because those two are in like really good spots. Like those two like are just people, those are just faithful. And also it'd be really cool if they could try and recruit Sandra because I think she would be a really good traitor.
I mean, if things go the way they're going for a certain traitor that starts with a P, that's not Phaedra, they might have to be recruiting again soon. So we'll see.
I know. I would love like Sandra. I mean, CT would be a good traitor too, but like I do think Sandra would be really good because she is just so like feisty.
I feel like if it's up to Phaedra, it'll probably be CT just because, like, I mean, what we know, definitely she's going to choose CT. But I also feel like CT...
I could see it being one of those two, maybe even a Kate.
CT is the most locked for the end game right now, I think, in terms of the Faithfuls, because he's like the most good with all the traitors. Like, there's never going to be an incentive where they murder him. He seems to finally be off people's radars. So, yeah, I think CT is pretty much locked for the end. Sandra is a possibility. I could see Sandra getting Stephanied. Honestly, I could see that happening.
I could see that. I don't know what I could see, but I could see someone like a Trishelle being like an easy, like, let's just go for her as like a murder.
Yeah, I could see that happening
like,
too.
I could see Trishelle being like collateral damage.
Yeah, I could definitely see that.
Yeah. CT says he thinks people are getting fed up with all the faithfuls are just going out and are tired of being wrong and just really want to get a traitor. Kate asks Sandra who she thinks might be dead, and Sandra says it might be John, since he's the most faithful of the faithfuls.
And this is why you murder John, because they already think it's going to be John.
I know. Hey, Janaea.
Hi, Janaea.
The next two to arrive are Phaedra and MJ. Oh my god, I totally keep forgetting about MJ.
No. Yeah, I know.
I feel like MJ is another collateral damage one.
Yeah.
Phaedra is feeling frustrated by the choice to murder Bergie because it wasn't her decision. Dan wanted him out because he's been hot on his trail. She really adores her Bergelicious, thinks he's so sweet and kind, but everyone's got to die. The next to arrive are Peter and Kevin.
Mhm.
Oh, Kevin's another one that's not in a good spot.
I mean, I think he's in a better spot now, but
Yeah, but he also is a lot of people find him frustrating.
I mean, yes, but I think like Tamra being murdered was probably like really good for him because I think he's
Yeah.
pretty much off people's radars by now. I think the only person that he really should worry about is Kate, but Kate doesn't really seem to care much about that. So it's like
Kate doesn't really care. She just wants to like get
cause
rid of
cause shit.
she just wants to get rid of that alliance, that not alliance, and
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a little bit, but a big episode for Peter, especially. If Peter I will say, like, if Peter continues to do what he's doing, this is really the start of like why Peter might win this game. Like, it's because of what he does in last week's episode and then this episode. But if Peter ends up also getting like banished, this is also the episode as to why. So
Peter says he's feeling good coming into breakfast, and he has a bit of a strategy in play right now, and he's just hoping the trap to get a traitor works. Also, go look at the picture on Instagram.
Okay.
Speaking of that,
I mean, you can keep reading while I look.
okay. Peter immediately throws out John as an option since he's completely useless to the traitors, and everyone's so convinced he's a faithful, and Dan says he thinks it might be someone who voted for him because it's an easy pin, of course. Of course he murdered them since they voted for him. So it comes down to Bergie, Trishelle, and John.
Yep.
Just then, John and Trishelle walk in, which makes everyone believe Bergie was murdered.
Yep.
And then Peter then realizes the trap has worked, and this is the mic drop.
Yeah, Peter is just so cocky in this episode. Oh, okay, that's the one you used.
I know, he's like, he went from like the nice guy to this like cocky guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think for him, it's like he came up with this idea and now he just kind of suspects that everything's going to go his way and that he's in this amazing spot. And I mean, we'll see. I mean, if things continue to go the way they are, he might be able to just like keep doing what he's doing, but it's not like people aren't
like literally like
he's doing, so we'll see.
Peter doesn't even like look like he's like cocky because he just like gives off like teddy bear vibes like Bergie. Just like his smile.
No, that's more Bergie, I would say. That's not Peter.
I said both of them like look like teddy bear vibes just because they have like their sweet smiles. But then Peter's just. But I guess when Peter thinks everything goes his way, he gets all cocky.
Yeah, I mean, he says multiple times in this episode, like, I'm here to win. I'm here to win. I'm here to win. It's like, yes, you're here to win, but you also need to be very careful with like how you're playing. So I don't know. I think this was a great move from Peter, but I think he's a little too flashy with like how he goes about it.
Dan is feeling good that he murdered Bergie since he is someone who has been adamant that he's a traitor. He just wants to get through this breakfast and really sit back and enjoy his cup of coffee. Trishelle says everyone is going to be totally surprised when Bergie walks in because they will think he was murdered, but she knows that he has the shield since she also does.
Yep.
Suddenly, there is a knock on the door, and in walks Bergie, who they are all shocked, and he then reveals he had the shield someone gave him at death warrant last night.
Yep.
Dan is flabbergasted and doesn't know what happened.
Yeah, and after this, I'm like, oh god, Dan's done. Like, this is it. This is where he goes. This is horrible.
I know. Phaedra says they thought Bergie was dead, but just like Christ, he rose again.
Yep. Phaedra, once again, top tier lines in this episode. Like so many good lines from her.
She just gives like such main character energy.
Well, not just main character energy. It's just she's someone that is just a constant just quote. Like she's just like a quote machine at this point. Like she always has something iconic to say.
Yeah. Oh, I just realized my microphone's not plugged in.
I mean, you can go do that.
I'll do that after I read this part. Peter is very happy the trap worked and the traitors took the bait, so now he knows at least one traitor is in that group of Parvati, CT, and Dan.
Yep.
Shereé says Bergie is super happy waving his shield and she has no idea what the hell is going on as usual.
Yeah, literally per the course for Shereé. When does she know what's going on? I will give her credit that she is starting to turn things around in this episode. Like she's starting to put the pieces together, but it very much is kind of giving the vibe of like, when someone already knew something and then you're kind of finding it out the last second. Like, that's Shereé right now. Like, she's starting to figure it out, but it's like, oh, now you're figuring it out. Like, we've been new.
Exactly. Like, I don't dislike her or anything. She just, like, she's finally playing a little better, but, like, not doing that much, per se. Also, I'm just plugging in my app. App. Hello! Was that loud?
I don't know. I don't know if it works. It's very hard to tell.
All right. So Dan says this one is on him. He wanted to take a huge risk and get out a big target, and it's backfired. Bergie then brings up to Peter that how he told people how he had the shield, and Peter then reveals his plan to everyone, and that he only leaked it to a couple people, that he had it when he didn't.
Yeah.
Bergie says,
I wanted to bring this up. Do you think that this was like a good move for Peter to like publicly tell everyone like what him and Bergie were doing here?
Not really.
Yeah, because I feel like with something like this, even though it was Peter's idea, let Bergie take the heat for this. Like, let this be fully on Bergie, even though Bergie is very much Peter's number one at this point. It doesn't really necessarily matter. I think if Peter wanted to kind of like avoid the fate that he thought he was going to have in this episode, what you do here is just fully put it on Bergie. Say this was Bergie's idea. Bergie came up with this. Like, tell people that privately. Let Bergie take the heat. Like, that's what you want to do. And then the traitors will murder Bergie and not you, and the traitors will think they're good with you. Like, I think that is what Peter needed to do here. So everyone's saying that Peter's like this like masterful strategic player. Pump the brakes a little bit. I think he had a really great idea. I think this was a really good move from him. I just think he's a little too flashy with the way he goes about it.
I think he got a little too cocky and confident, and he's just like, he wants the resume move. So he's just like, yeah, I want the heat, not Bergie.
Resume move, but where's the jury? Like
I think he wants people to think Berkey's just like his second in command,
which he is. But I think the way a really great player pins this fully onto Bergie and makes him look innocent, because that's why this worked, because nobody suspected that Peter wasn't with them. Nobody, Dan suspected that Peter was telling the truth. And I think if Peter had not said this, then Dan is more annoyed at Bergie than he is at Peter.
Yeah.
So
exactly. So Bergie says they leaked it to the people that they thought were traitors, and Sandra asks who he leaked it to, and Bergie just says a couple of people, and everyone is scrambling to find out who he told.
Yeah, I mean, I like that Bergie is very gives very brief information here, like, oh, we just told a few people. Like, that's fun, that's exciting. But I mean, it really does show that, like, okay, they only trust a couple, they only trust a certain amount of people. Like, it's not great. It kind of shows Bergie and Pierre's positioning. Like, they're making it so obvious with how they're playing the game.
Exactly. Like, they're just being very they're just trying to be too much.
Yeah, just very, very upfront. And again, I think, we go back to Shereé, and I know, yes, Shereé was a traitor and Peter's like a faithful, but what Shereé did so well last season was completely hide her positioning and completely hide who she was.
Going back to Phaedra and Sandra, I think those two are like really playing like how you're supposed to play faithful and traitor. Like, those two are and CT too. Like, those three. Like, I can see both of those being locks for the end. Those three, CT, Sandra, and Phaedra. But like, they're like really playing it well.
Yeah, I think the way you go about it is like, you want to be as social as possible. You want to be as like well insulated as possible. I think flashier moves like this, you can still do stuff like this, but you got to do it in a way where people don't realize that you're doing it. Yeah. And I think that's what Peter needed to do here.
Parvati says she's been exposed, and she fully and completely blames Dan with his decision to murder Bergie. But as long as she's still, but as long as she's still in the game, she still has power and will reclaim it.
This is not a great episode for Parv. Really,
no, it's not. Like, she really needs to do some damage control if she wants to survive.
I'm very worried for her.
Yeah. Kate says she's like the new kid at school. She has no idea what's going on. Bergie seems excited when he walks through the door and with the shield, but he always seems excited.
Yep. I mean, she's right. Bergie is like this permanent like smile on his face with like everything he says. It's kind of
I feel like if Parvati wants to do some damage control too, she should also try and get like Kate on her side because Kate doesn't really have any allies.
I think it's pretty easy to get Kate on your side because it's like
Yeah.
Kate doesn't have, like you said, Kate doesn't have anybody. So yeah, I think that's a good way to go about it. I actually
maybe that'll be her new duo with Dan gone.
Yeah.
Even though I wanted the traitors and Dan and Parv and all of them to succeed.
Yeah.
And spoilers, obviously everyone knows who left.
Yeah.
Parvati oh, my mom. I'll text my mom after. Parvati said, because I'm reading from my phone. Parvati says he told her in confidence and she kept it to herself and didn't say a word. Dan says it was leaked to him, but he's not a traitor.
Like Dan just really does not do himself any favors in this episode. Like, listen, I love Dan. I will always be like a Dan Gheesling stan through and through, but I don't think anything he does in this episode was like the right way to go about it. I don't think he says anything in the way he needed to. Like, he just really completely sinks his game in this episode.
I know. Poor Dan. Phaedra says Dan and Parvati have fallen into a big trap and could be in big trouble, but her name has not been brought up, so she feels safe today.
Yeah, once again, Phaedra just completely undetected. Like, it's so impressive how Dan and Parvati are getting all the heat, but Phaedra's the one, like, just completely just cleared. Like, nobody suspects a thing.
Mm-hmm. Alan then comes in and welcomes them all and says everyone is now still here, and he'll let them work out what that means and not to ask him because he's only here to say cryptic things and look absolutely spectacular. He tells them to meet him outside shortly. They will need their strength and a lot of balance for today's mission. Dan says it's a huge gamble and it backfired. Peter totally let him off the scent.
Mm-hmm.
But he's not that slick. He's a bachelor that gives roses. He's not a strategist, but he got him, and now he's got to change up how he's going to play this game completely.
Yeah, and this is why I said I think Peter needs to not be as flashy because Dan's like onto him already.
Yeah, I will say though, at least like I'm glad Dan's aware.
But I think again, the way Peter could have played it, Dan wouldn't have been aware because Peter could have played as like, I don't know what happened. Like, I was told that it was, I was, you know, I think he could have done this a lot differently than he did. So, or he could have said like, Bergie told me to say this and things like that. Like there's different ways he could have gone about this. So
yeah, definitely.
But getting to after the breakfast, I mean, we get some really exciting stuff here. Peter pulls Bergie aside, says he didn't know if they were going to come for him last night, but was praying that they were, and they walked right into the trap. These two are just feeling so high and mighty right now, just on top of the world. I don't blame them because like this literally worked perfectly. This was like such a like incredible plan that they went for, and I think they really just killed it here. But again, I mean, they are just so obvious this entire episode with like how close they are. So Peter says as soon as Bergie walked in, he knew that the trap worked, and Dan and Parvati did not feel comfortable. Their face said it all. They were so squirmish, but CT didn't react. So now it's down to Dan and Parvati. It's advantage faithfuls now, and he loves it. So Peter goes to Phaedra and MJ and says he's wearing all black because the traitors go down tonight. He kind of just wanted to rile some feathers, and he says Parvati couldn't look at him, and Phaedra says her name was brought up a lot, but then it just got drowned out by the others, and Peter asks Phaedra if the name ever got brought up to her, and she says that she never heard it. So this completely clears Phaedra, because Phaedra says, like, I was not one of the people that was told. I didn't hear anything. So again, Phaedra's just really killing it in terms of like her, social game here, the way that she is playing, as a faithful, and people feel that she's a faithful. She's really just doing such an incredible job. So Phaedra says that she does feel really bad for, she does feel really bad for Dan and Parvati, but it's every traitor for themselves. So Parvati says that Peter came for her. She fell right into his little trap, and she's feeling very exposed and vulnerable, but she's very good at surviving, and she needs to convince Peter that she's not a traitor. And when Parvati said this, I was really expecting something along the lines of like her trying to tell Peter that like there was no hard feelings or something like that, and that she was really, on his side, and that she was going to maybe try to throw Dan under the bus here. That's what I really thought she was going to do. That's not really how she goes about this. That's not really what she does. To be honest, I was actually pretty disappointed in what Parvati does in this episode, because I really thought that like she was doing a better job than Dan was, but kind of what I suspected last episode is what's happening here. I don't think Parvati was ever in that good of a spot, like at all. Like, I don't think she ever really was. And I think this episode like really like confirms that Parvati was always in a really dangerous spot in this game.
Yeah.
So
I hope she just keeps on surviving though, because that'd be great.
We'll see. I don't know. After this episode, I really don't know. So she pulls him aside and she asks him how, if he's planting seeds the whole time, how is he not a traitor? And he says he thinks it's pretty obvious at this point. He really doesn't think anyone had suspicion on him. And he asks if she does, and she says that she is because he's gaming really hard. And he asks why she isn't a traitor, and asks if she's planted any seeds or any information that anyone else knows how to get him off of her. And she gives a very cryptic answer saying, oh, she's just doing the best that she possibly can to figure things out. She thinks it's 100% that she's not. He thinks it's 100% he's not. Everyone's going to say that about themselves. And he says he's trying to work with her right now, but she's not giving him anything. And I will give Peter this. I like that he at least said, like, listen, I'm trying to work with you. Like, I want to get something out of you, and you're just not budging. And I thought this was really bad for Parvati. Like, just give him a name. Like, just say Dan, say anything. Like, I feel like she needed to at least present him with some kind of information instead of giving him nothing. It feels like Dan really rubbed off on her here. Like, his cryptic answers just like really rubbed off on her, and just really not great for Parvati at all. I was honestly just like very surprised how badly she handled this conversation. Did you have anything to add with that?
Oh, sorry. I was looking at my project.
Oh, I was saying that I was very surprised how badly Parvati handled this interaction with Peter. I would have thought that like she would have given him like something much better,
I mean,
but she gives him nothing here.
I mean, I didn't think she did bad. Like, she
I
could
thought
have
she
done.
did.
I thought she could have done a little better, but like, I thought she did what she could. Like, she at least said what she could, but those two will just probably not work together just because they just don't really align.
Well,
But she definitely could have done way better.
I just like, what do you think she did well? Because I don't think she did anything well here.
I mean, saying that she's not a traitor at least, and doing what she can, but she definitely
It's the
didn't
bare
really give him enough.
minimum.
She didn't really give him as much as she should have.
She didn't give him anything. What do you mean? She didn't give him anything. So Parvati says that Peter needs to get off her case. He thinks he's caught her in a lie.
I think they both kind of flopped in that conversation.
No, I don't think Peter did, because Peter said, like, I'm trying to work with you. Like, I'm trying to get something out of you, and she didn't give him anything. So,
I mean, he's literally doing what he does to Dan.
I mean, yeah, but Dan also handles it badly. So I don't really blame Peter for that. So
yeah, she definitely could have been better for sure.
So basically, she says Peter needs to get off her case. He thinks he's caught her in a lie, and now is making his mission to get her out of the game. And again, Parvati, like, you gave him nothing. Like, I don't know what you expect here. Like, you gave him the most suspicious answers possible. So again, just really not great. So Dan says he's under a lot of fire right now. This is a very difficult fight for him, and he's playing it way too slow and not aggressive enough. The time for being passive is over, and it's time for him to really take control of the ship. And I'm like, oh God, what are you possibly going to do now to make this worse for yourself? So Peter then pulls Dan aside, and Dan asks him if he can understand what went wrong with them. Peter says that there's nothing he could have done. He was always in his top three, that he's pretty confident it has to be him or Parvati because of the leak that he did. And Peter's just like being so upfront with Dan at this point, just telling him, like, listen, you were always on my radar. I always was after you. There's nothing that, you really could have done or anything like that. So, I thought just in general, again, just really bad interaction between these two. I think there's so much more that Dan could have said here. So Parvati, so basically Peter pulls Dan aside. Oh, I just read that. So Dan says it's a little weird that he did that, that he just thought it was because they were tight, and tells him that when he says he's a faithful to not take it to heart because he gets it and he isn't mad. And Peter says he's just going to be honest that he's pretty convinced. And if he's wrong, and it's going to suck. So Dan says he's very concerned based on how Peter's talking to him. He will not rest until they get their first traitor blood. He's had his back against the wall. This is not new to him, so it's time to see what he can pull off. And again, you really see how much Dan underestimated Peter here, and that Peter was somebody that he needed to not trust. And again, I think it really is due to the fact that, like, people just thought, oh, Peter's just a bachelor. He doesn't know what he's doing. But no, Peter's like fully exposed himself now. Like, people know that Peter is this mastermind. Like, Peter absolutely masterminded this plan. And again, just really not great for Dan at all. I think he really could have just thrown Parvati under the bus here. He could have said, like, Parvati's a traitor. I've had my eye on her. Or if he wanted to do what he did at the round table, this is really where he needed to start doing it, but he didn't. And again, because he's just not giving anything like he usually has, it just made things so much worse for Dan. So again, just not a great interaction.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this conversation was a little bit better, at least, because, like, Peter and Dan are close. Like,
are they?
Yeah, they've always, like, did you hear them? They've literally said, like, so many times the last few episodes that, like, how close they are.
Well, yes, but the thing is, like, at this point, it doesn't really matter if you're close in this situation.
Peter just knows that, like, Dan doesn't really give a lot, but he wants, but Dan at least was like, yeah, I'm getting there, blah blah blah.
Well, when you're so sure that somebody is a traitor at that point, it doesn't really matter if you're close with them. What matters is just getting them out and kind of proving yourself right. And I think that's all that Peter cares about right now. He just wants to get the traitor out, and I don't really blame him for doing so.
Yeah, definitely. Like, yeah, Dan and Parvati definitely, like, screwed up a lot in this episode.
Yeah.
For this mission, all they have to do is, so getting into the mission, for this mission, all they have to do is fire a cannonball from his magnificent catapult. But there are a couple of issues. Number one, the catapult launch is away from where they're on top of a massive hill. But the other issue is that the catapult isn't actually there yet, so they need to find, collect, and carry the catapult pieces along the long and arduous journey in order to successfully build the machine. En route, they will find a sled, which will help them transport the pieces, but he informs them the pieces are not light and they will need all the strength and tools they must muster. To clarify, they are to collect and carry the catapult pieces before constructing them at the top of the ridge, and then fire the fabulous golden cannonball from the catapult. If they are unable to do it within 60 minutes, they will bank an extra 20K to their prize pot. But as usual, there's one more thing. There is a chance for one player to win a shield that will protect them from tonight's murder. Along the way, they will find shield ammo boxes. Only the players that cross the finish line with an ammo box will have the chance to fight for the one shield on offer. However, if the catapult isn't built in time, not only will they not win the money, but there will be no opportunity to play for a shield.
This combo's okay. Compared to, like, some of the other ones we've had this season, definitely not my favorite. I like that if they don't finish the challenge, they can't get a shield. There's, like, incentive to actually, like, doing well in this challenge. I like that. But overall, not really my favorite.
Yeah, it was kind of just meh. This was probably, like, the weakest part of the episode, but I still, like, thought it was an A+ episode overall. But I would say that it was the comp that was just kind of meh for me.
Yeah. Bless you.
Thank you. Going up the hill, going up the hill, going up the hill. Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Because you put our little cute Kellyism in our notes.
I had to. He said hill, so I had to.
It's funny. Trishelle says there's always a chance she could and thinks she will get murdered, so she wants a shield, but everyone wants one, so this is very important.
Mm-hmm.
Peter says he probably will be a target for murder, so if there is ever a chance where he can secure a shield, he's going to take it, just needs to survive.
Again, the way you avoid this is by not exposing that you were behind this. Like, just say it was all
Mhm.
Bergie.
Exactly, like, what are you doing? Like, this was definitely, like, a good and bad episode for him, because like, he was good, but he also was, like, way too cocky.
I think he would have, like I said, I think his whole plan is a genius idea. I think it's great how it worked out, but I think he needed to say that this was Bergie's idea. And I
Yeah.
think that Bergie takes the heat for it, and he's
Mhm.
not in the position that he is.
Definitely, that would have been way better. Kate says everyone knows how much he hates this hill. Last time she was here, she had a little throw she had a little throw her toys out the pram moment, so she feels like Alan is just making to her redo this mission on purpose. She wants comfort and leisure and doesn't understand why they can't just hang out in the castle. She could think of about 500 different ways to make 20 grand by selling a kidney.
That's great.
That was great. Trishelle goes off to find a shield, knowing she needs it, and she is able to secure the box. Kevin is not happy to see this, and she tells him she needs it more than he does, and he says that isn't true. While they are scrambling for the pieces, they find another shield which Sandra is able to obtain, much to the dismay of Peter. That's funny. Sandra's always just like, I'm here for myself.
Oh, yeah.
It's so good. She's like, the queen stays queen.
Yep.
While helping the team haul a catapult from a box Peter had gotten earlier, Kate is trying to steal and she decides to keep it for herself. When Alan asks who deserves it, she says no one.
This
That
was
was
the highlight of
funny.
the comp for me, is when
It
Kate
was so
almost
good.
took the ammo from Peter, and he's
Oh,
like,
it
"Who
took me
wants it?"
out.
And she's like, "No one." But then she's like, "All right, fine, I'll give it up."
It was funny. After struggling for a bit, John is able to pull the catapult and launch the cannonball onto the flag. John says pulling the catapult is probably the most exciting moment in the game, and he is on cloud 9.
Amazing, amazing.
They now have earned an extra 20K. I almost did that in a British accent.
You're just gonna read the whole thing, just like your John.
Yeah. With that, it's now time for Peter, Sandra, Shereé, Parvati, and Trishelle to compete for who will get the shield.
Yep.
After most of them end up missing their target, Shereé has won the shield and is safe from the next murder, which I mean, good for her. She got something.
Yeah, I mean, this is good for Shereé. I don't think she was ever in danger of being murdered, but I mean, that's what's good about these shields, is that it can be completely random and things like that. I will say, I do think moving forward, I kind of want these shields to be like unknown. Like, I think not having the shield revealed in the last episode, if they reveal who has the shield, that changes literally everything. Peter's not able to do what he does. So I do think maybe just food for thought, maybe it would be a good idea to just from this point on have all the shields be completely anonymous, and just really like make the traitors scramble. But I mean, Shereé having it cool doesn't really mean much in the grand scheme of things, but good for her. Good for her.
Definitely. Like, it's at least something that she can at least, like, win something and actually, like,
Yeah.
and she won't have to bother being, like, up for murder next round.
Yeah. You mean this round?
Or, like, I know, but, like, since then she has the shield for the next
Yeah.
murder. So Dan is very happy Peter didn't get a shield. He's on to him, and it's dangerous to his game, so he has to get him out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Shereé is very happy because she's never gotten a shield and will be sleeping so good tonight knowing she can't be murdered.
Yep.
So post mission, it's pretty spicy as well.
Yeah.
Oh my god. So while in the car back on the way to the castle, Kate mentions to Bergie and Shereé about voting Dan for tonight and says she is more certain about Parvati, and Shereé says she has been on her radar since day one.
Yeah, which,
Yeah,
like, where has this
Parvati,
Shereé been? A Shereé that,
I
like, has
know.
good reads and actually is on to the right
I
people?
will
Like,
say, like,
what's happening?
I will say Parvati's the one that keeps on surviving because she has been not really in the best spot since day
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Like, definitely, like, she's playing well, but she's
Is
like,
she?
like, I mean, like, strategically she does well and so that, but socially she's just not good this season.
I think for me, I think personally for me, like what I'm seeing is that Parvati isn't playing well. It's just compared to Dan, she was playing better.
Yeah.
But I think we do see in this episode that like both of them are not playing very well.
Yeah, sadly. Kevin talks to Phaedra and MJ about if Dan is still on the chopping block, and they both agree that he is. And Kevin says he hasn't done anything though.
It doesn't matter. Like Kevin, stop saying that. It doesn't matter if he hasn't done anything.
Kevin's just like, I want to go for MJ or like Parvati.
Yeah.
Because remember, he thought MJ was annoying.
Kevin should be thanking everything, like literally thanking everybody, like thanking Peter for like the rest of time that he has him, because literally without that alliance that he was in, Kevin would be absolutely useless.
Trishelle, Peter, and Parvati talk to Dan about how he's feeling tonight. And Dan says he knows he's like under the gun, but just kind of needs to see where the chips land at the round table. During this, Peter asks Parvati if his murder tonight will be painless, and Parvati is annoyed that he's asking her. It won't get off her back, and he can't do that and stay alive, so he's going to have to die.
Yeah, this is really where I'm like, what is the point of this? Like, is he trying to get Parvati to like react to the fact that like he thinks it's her? Because like, here's the thing, even if she's not a traitor, she's still probably going to react in the same annoyed way. So I don't really understand what the motive is of like just continually antagonizing her. I think he just kind of likes the beef, but like it's all it's doing is further incentivizing that like the traitors are going to come after you.
I'm
like
definitely here for Parv versus Peter, but like,
oh yeah,
my god. It's so entertaining though.
Oh, it is. It's just not the greatest gameplay.
Yeah. Dan says even though Peter thinks he's 99.9% a traitor, he will never quit if he can present a decent argument to him and everyone that he isn't a traitor. Let's see what happens at the round table. Peter goes to everyone saying it's his last meal for tonight, and he will tell them it's either Dan or Parvati for tonight.
Yeah, he's just being so upfront, like, yeah, I'm getting murdered. I'm just throwing it all out there. Like,
Parvati tries coming in and he tells her to wait 1 second and shuts the door in her face. Like, oh my
God. I can't. I
just don't know.
He's being so obvious at this point.
Yeah. Like, he shut the door in her face.
Yeah.
Their rivalry is so funny. Not great gameplay, but...
Oh, no.
Parvati says Peter is on this moral crusade and playing this holier-than-thou act where he's the leader of the faithfuls and the most faithful of them all. Peter is going to single-handedly lead all these faithfuls to safety and crush all the traitors, and she doesn't like the game he's playing and would really like to get rid of him. She wants to break that group apart.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with her. I think the game he's playing is like so obvious, and like he's trying so hard to like be the leader. Like, I'm gonna get us all the victory. I'm gonna get us all, you know, to get all the traitors out. It's like, yeah, I would be annoyed by this too. It's like, Peter, let somebody else have the win.
Yep. Bergie says to all of them that he thinks it might not be Dan and should be Parvati because she's the most obvious, and Shereé agrees.
Yeah, and I was wondering, like, is this gonna flip onto Parvati here? Is that what's gonna happen? Is Parvati?
It would be interesting. He grabs Parvati, who asks what's going on, and asks them to fill her in, and they say absolutely nothing. And then Bergie brings up Dan's name, and she asks if hers is, and he says he is saying without saying, and she says he knows that it's been out there, and she's not surprised, but it's very suspicious that Peter, Bergie, Sandra, John, Trishelle, Shereé, and Kevin are all locked in together. It's possible one of them could be a traitor.
Yeah, this was not the move from Parvati. She needed to absolutely like drag Dan here and like just say that like Dan is you know,
hello.
Hi Bryce. Yes, I agree. Fantastic season all around.
Yeah. And also hey King.
Yes, but no, I mean, she really needed to like drag Dan under the bus here and really just say like, I've had my suspicions on Dan for a while. The things that I'm getting blamed for, like Dan's doing, this is not me. Like, I think this could have really been her moment to like clear her name, but because the fact that like she's not willing to throw Dan under the bus, it just really ends up hurting her.
Yeah.
So it kind of does make me feel, and like I don't know if people are going to do this in future seasons, but maybe it's not a good idea to like have a traitor as your number one because you're not going to turn on that person. Like, don't work with a traitor in lockstep if you're not prepared to turn on them at some point, because I think that's what both of them needed to do, and neither of them really do it here.
Definitely. Like, this Parvati just like did not play well this round.
No.
Sandra says Parvati is good at deceiving and lying, and they're already onto her.
Yeah, not really
and, like,
great.
Sandra and Sandra's like totally fine to go for Parvati.
Yep.
Because they're like not really like besties.
Yeah, I mean they're not really working together, so
yeah. John asks Parvati what her instincts are, and she says she's very much onto Dan, but doesn't trust anyone 100% and doesn't think any of them can.
I can't with this accent.
I had to. Dan says he's trying to survive minute by minute. He needs 100% strategy to save his neck. Dan talks to Parvati and says he's asking for an
Peter,
opening.
Not Parvati, Peter. He talks to Peter.
Sorry, there's so many P names.
I know. It's like there's usually a lot of there's usually a lot of J's, but instead there's a lot of P's.
Yeah, there's a lot of PPs.
Stop.
Yeah, it's like Parvati, Phaedra, and Peter just making an alliance called the PPP.
That would be very interesting. Well, I mean, considering what happens at the end of this episode, technically they've already made an alliance, so.
Yeah, the PPP, Princess Protection Program.
Stop. No, not that.
Anyway.
Yeah, the princesses are gonna come save the day and save everybody from the traitors.
Yes, Demi Lovato and Selena Gomez.
Yep. Demi Lovato is gonna play the Traitors season 3.
Ooh, I mean that'd be kind of cool. Yeah. Anyway,
I mean, if they can get John Bercow, like anything is possible at this point.
Yeah. Dan talks to Peter and says he's asking for an open ear when he states his case. He doesn't know who all the traitors are, but he's been working on this one person who he's like 100% on, and he has to take the shot. And Peter asks if he's going to wait till the round table to tell them, and Dan says he needs to at least consider what he's saying.
Yeah, and I mean, I know that Dan likes to be very flashy and like public about things, but he really just needed to say like who it was, and I think this actually could have potentially worked out. But because again, he's just so he's just so quiet about like he's so cryptic about everything that he's doing. It's just really not great for him.
Yeah, it didn't work. Dan says he came out of retirement for over a decade for this. He's willing to do whatever it takes, and it's time for him to go after one of his own traitors. At the round table, it will be a big shock, but this is what he does. He pulls Trishelle aside and says he knows who one traitor is, and he can't go down in this game without taking a shot. And she says if he's a faithful, he's got to fight for himself and plead his case. Dan says when he hits them all with the left hook, he's got a shock to knock them out.
Yeah, he really thinks he's about to do something here.
I know. I mean, for one person at least, he does.
Yeah.
Which we'll talk about later. He asks CT if he makes a compelling evidence-based argument on who it is, and while if he'll listen, then CT says he just wants to know who it is.
Yeah, so let's get into this roundtable because there's so much to talk about here with how this plays out. Because basically, we start off, Parvati says the heat is raining down on the traitors, but she's not willing to give up or lay down and die. It is every traitor for themselves. And I'm like, Parvati, that you need to, if it's every traitor for themselves, you need to start throwing out Dan. Like you're not playing like it's every traitor for themselves. You're playing like it's you and Dan versus Phaedra, basically. So Peter says going into this roundtable, he's feeling very confident in his plan. He will do whatever he can to spread the truth, and he's one step closer to finally having this castle crumble and the traitors being revealed. Dan says that they are telling him they want a name tonight. It's time to take a shot and let the fireworks fly. And again, I mean, this seemed like Dan was going to give us another like replacement roulette. He was going to give us another Dan's funeral. Like again, Dan's all about doing very public things, and he does do that here. But unfortunately, it doesn't quite work out in the way that he was hoping, because we get to the round table and he kicks it off by saying since day one, he has been watching one person and it's time for that to come out. So he says he's been collecting information. He asked them all one question. He says if their name has been written down at least once on the chalkboard, he says he's looking at the least suspicious people based on actions. And he points out Bergie, Shereé, Phaedra, Sandra, and Parvati. And he says that isn't enough to convict someone, but that's where he stands, and then tells them to look at voting patterns. And he asks if anyone has voted a little weird. Talks about how Sandra has always banished someone, but always explained herself, so she's out of the equation. Shereé had one weird vote with John, but she explained it. Bergie just kind of goes with the crowd, so that leaves Parvati and Phaedra. So you know he's about to drag one of the traitors under the bus. And logically, I mean, it makes sense to drag Parvati here. Parvati is the only other name that has come up at this point. Parvati is the only name that everyone thinks is like 100% a traitor. Even if you were working with Parvati, like it's you or Parvati at this point. Like it makes sense to go for Parvati here, but that's not what he ends up doing. He says to Parvati that her only vote outside the norm was for Kevin, but she explained what that was about. She was suspect of him, and she says she is still. So that leaves one person, which is Phaedra. And here's the thing. I did say prior to this episode that I thought he was going to drag Phaedra under the bus. And I don't think on paper that's a bad idea. But the way he goes about this was not it. This was not a good reason to go after Phaedra. Because he says that she's had one vote that hasn't been explained well. She voted out Ekin-Su, which that isn't honestly a bad reason. Like, I think that was fine what he said. It's like, okay, yeah, her voting out Ekin-Su didn't make much sense. Nobody else did that. The traitor might try to just do what they want to do, and no one ever questioned her on it. Then the next day she got murdered. So they have someone who is not suspecting a weird vote, but that's still not enough. And then he brings up this other reason, which I will be honest, makes zero sense what he says here. He talks about her breakfast reactions, as he calls them.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And when he said this, I thought what he was going to bring up was what she did with Tamra last week, where Tamra got murdered and then she just said, like, you know, just pass the eggs or whatever. I thought that's what he was going to bring up, because that actually goes somewhere. It's like, okay, you wanted the housewives to come together. You said that you guys were a group, and then Tamra's murdered and you had no reaction to it. That I actually think might have potentially worked, but that's not what he says. He brings up how she reacted to Marcus and consoling Larsa, as well as how she reacted to Tamra, saying they were coming after the housewives. And then with Bergie, there is another weird reaction. So she will never get brought up because everyone likes her. And to him, that is the most suspect thing. So those are his reads. And that's who he has been watching since day one. And Phaedra just comes in so hot here. Phaedra is so pissed at what he says, but handles herself so eloquently and just so calmly. And I was honestly just so impressed by how she did this, because she asked if he's been watching her since day one, and he says yes, and no one has ever written her name down. And she says that no one has written a lot of people's names down, and it doesn't mean that they're a traitor. He asked her to explain that Ekin-Su vote. She says she voted for Ekin-Su because the issue she had with Janelle and changing her story. Everybody knows that. And then he asked her about the breakfast murder reactions, and she's unsure what this is supposed to mean. What do you mean breakfast murder reactions? Kate also is bringing up what he's saying. And at first I thought Kate was like starting to come around, starting to be on Dan's side. But even she says, like, this makes no sense. I don't understand what the problem is here. I don't see the logic in what you're saying. Dan says that the logic is that it's always been a bit extra. Kate asks if he's seen her, and Phaedra says that she's very extra because she does too much while he does too little. But tonight he's the one doing too much because he knows he's about to get banished. So he's putting the heat on her, which is a crock of bullshit. And he's a Big Brother winner, not once, but twice. And he mentions that just almost, but either way, he has knowledge of this game. So if there was ever a mastermind, it wouldn't be a dolled up housewife. That wouldn't be it. And she mentions that Bergie voted for him last night and said it's because Dan thought he was able to be murdered. Dan asks if she doesn't think that's a bit too obvious. She asks why she would want him out. She doesn't have any problem with Bergie. He says he didn't say she wanted him out. She says that he's saying that she's the killer. And again, just Phaedra handles herself so well here. Literally having an answer for everything and answering it like very well. Like this wasn't just like a small answer. Like she goes in depth here and says, well, no, what about, but this, like she gives very detailed answers and just really, again, just shows how incredible of a game she's playing. But then on the flip side, also shows how bad of a game that Dan is playing. I mean, what did you think of this whole confrontation here?
Oh my god. I mean, obviously, it was very entertaining to watch.
Oh, yeah.
It was and, like, I like seeing him do that. It's just I mean, it makes sense he at least didn't go for Parvati, like, it probably because, like, they were a duo, but I mean and he wanted to stay loyal, but I mean, he should have picked Parvati,
Yeah.
but, I mean
Loyalty doesn't matter when it's one of the two of you going.
Yeah, exactly. He should have just threw under the bus and because it could have worked.
Yeah.
It could have worked way better. Because I mean, especially with the people who wanted to go for Parvati over him.
Mhm.
Like they could have been swayed there.
Well, what he needed to do is he needed to bring up, I think, that Parvati was a bartender. Like Parvati was giving out drinks that one night, and Parvati gave a drink to Ekin-Su. Nobody really questioned on it. Like I think he could have said something along the lines of that. He could have brought up how Parvati, you know, hasn't been getting any votes. Parvati's been escaping, but people think she's a traitor.
Yeah,
Why does this keep happening?
He could have been like, her name's been out since day one, but she's always survived. And things like that, and like that she's kind of like the obvious choice, like because now like it kind of does in a way it does ruin Phaedra's game a little bit just because like she was doing so good socially and no one was suspecting her, but now in a way it kind of ruins her game because it's like out there more. I mean, besides with one person.
I don't think it ruins her game at all, to be honest, because I think that she handled herself so well during this, and like she had such great answers for everything.
I mean, but for spoilers, Trishelle now does not trust her.
Yeah, which we'll talk about. But I think aside from that, I don't think this completely ruins her game at all. I think if he really wanted to do something, he needed to be pushing Phaedra like a lot earlier. Like the second that he wanted Phaedra out, he needed to start putting that out into the ether. Like, oh, did you see how Phaedra reacted at the breakfast today? Did you see how Phaedra reacted to this? Like, if he was also worried about her, he needed to point it out then.
I will say one thing he also didn't mention is when Phaedra said, "Does anyone the boiled eggs comment?" Because that was like very like he could have that was another thing he didn't bring up.
Yeah, that's what I thought he was going to bring up when he said the breakfast reactions. I thought he was going to talk about what she said about like her complete lack of a reaction to Tamra going, because that actually has some weight, I think, where it's like, wait, Phaedra said the previous night that she was all in for the housewives, but a housewife just got murdered and she had no reaction to it. So like, why is she not feeling some type of way about it?
Yep.
So I think that's the thing to really like drag her about. This really just felt like a nothing burger. Like Dan wanted to do something. He thought that he could have. He thought that he had, you know, the momentum. He thought that he had the right sort of story to do it. But I mean, this is not Big Brother where people are just going to believe what he's saying. Like this, Dan's been on people's radar. There's too many people that are onto him at this point.
You know how they brought Kate back this season? I honestly could see possibly a Dan coming back for like next season, a second.
I don't think he would.
I mean, well, maybe we'll see. Because I mean, this is so short too. I could see him being like, "Yeah, I'm gonna come back in and do better."
Yeah, but I think if they do that, like people would just think he's a traitor again, and they just get him out. Like it'd just be the same thing.
Maybe.
So,
or maybe, or he would just actually say names more. Maybe he'd do what Kate's doing and just cause shit.
I mean, if you're a traitor, that's bad to do, but we'll see.
If he just comes in as a faithful.
Yeah.
Who knows? So, I mean, I don't know. I could see a Dan or like Peppermint.
Maybe.
Like
I don't know.
Being like the second chances for sure.
Yeah.
And then or maybe Janelle too.
Yeah, I think it'd be probably, I mean, we'll see. But Bergie says that if Phaedra was thinking long game, she would trust him, and she agrees and says no one trusts him, and she didn't know anything about who had the shield. Peter brings up who he told, and he says, obviously one of them has to be a traitor, but he doesn't think that it's CT. So he obviously has suspicions with Dan and Parvati. He believes this is his last night because he was so vocal tonight, made some very bold statements, and he thinks he's onto it. And he gets murdered. They need to use it as proof. So again, he's really just trying to drag Parvati here. Parvati talks about a strong clique that has emerged that she observed today, says that they are not in Peter's group. They are probably going to get murdered or banished. Bergie says that all the traitors try to do is divide them, and they're doing a good job right now. They throw out names. He says they will get the traitors out, and that's their goal. Dan says at the end of the day, they know he's quiet. He took his shot, so now they have to pick. Parvati says that the reason she was trusting Dan was because, and Peter tries to tell them that all she's trying to separate herself, and she calls him out because he's cutting her off at this point. He's not letting her get a word in edgewise. And to
oh my God, yeah, when Peter cut Parvati off.
I know. So she says it doesn't feel good to falsely accuse someone, and it's very off-putting, and they have seen multiple faithfuls sit there and defend themselves, and they've been faithful. She did trust Dan, and she then exposes their day one connection that they've had from the jump and how good of a game player he is. But she may have trusted the wrong person, and Peter tells them to not buy it. And again, if Parvati had done this earlier in the day and like really brought up to Peter that like they had a strong connection and she doesn't trust Dan, this actually could have worked. But because she's not doing it till now, it just feels like she's just doing this as a Hail Mary, basically. Like that's all this really is. So it doesn't really end up working as well as she thinks it does. Alan then tells them the time we're talking is over. It's time to vote. And at this point, like I knew it was going to be Dan. I did not think Parvati was going to go here. I thought it was pretty obvious with how Dan handled things.
Yeah, like, if he at least threw Parvati under the bus, then he could have stayed. But yeah.
I think the second that she threw him under the bus, it's like, okay, Dan's done. Like there's no question about it. So Dan says this is the first time at a round table. He's very concerned. He can feel every little scrape of that chalk on the slate. Phaedra says that she is furious with Dan. She guesses there's no honor amongst thieves. And I mean, I don't blame her at all. The way he went about that was not the right way to do it.
I know.
Parvati says she hopes that there's enough suspicion going on with Dan so that she can now shake the target that is placed onto her. So it's then time for the votes. Phaedra goes first, and she obviously went with Dan, saying that with how much he's been dodging questions and answers, going right up under the radar, but he deflected on the wrong one, and he's going to learn tonight. And again, I got to commend Phaedra for just how much she keeps her composure here. She is very clearly just like enraged at what he's doing and so annoyed by how he came at her. But the way that she just completely stays calm the entire way through was just so impressive to see. I really just love the way that she was able to like handle herself here. So yeah, all around, all around, I think she just really killed it. So Parvati says she hopes that Parvati says that she hopes there's enough suspicion going on with Dan that she can now. Oh, I just read that. So Sandra's next. She went with Dan, saying that she thinks that he's a traitor with all the evidence he put at the round table. Peter's next and goes for Parvati, saying that he was calm and he felt that there were enough votes for Dan tonight. Really, again, just showing how cocky Peter is. He's like, oh, I knew that Dan was going, so I'm fine voting Parvati here. He says that this is his last night here. He doesn't want people to forget that only her and Dan knew the information that was leaked, and he just wants to make sure that the faithfuls end up winning this. John is next and gives the best defense I have seen all season. I mean,
oh my God.
So iconic. He says he went with Dan because he listened to him intently and his deflection was on to Phaedra, and that case was comprehensively rebutted. Treachery deserves to be punished by banishment, and that should be his fate tonight because he's the silent slaughterer, as he calls him, and that's the son of it. And so good. So good. Like, again, just get John Bercow on everything. He's so good. Honestly,
he's such a meme kind of guy.
Yeah, I just love how much he is into this, and you can just tell how passionate he is about this game, and it's so great to see. I love it. So Parvati's next. She went with Dan, saying that it was either one of them tonight, clearly, and they'll let the chips fall where they do. Kevin is next. He went with Dan, saying he really wanted to hear what he had to say, and he just wasn't convinced. Trishelle is next, and she went with Dan, saying that he met his match. Dan is then next. He still votes for Phaedra. At this point, I think he really should have just voted for Parvati, saying that he should have known better to go against such an elegant lawyer. I like that he is saying that, like, I knew that I was wrong here, but again, just really not great for Dan. Like, if you're going to push for Phaedra, like, you need to stick to your principles and, like, really just push, like, it's Phaedra. You guys, you know, you guys are messing up here. Like, you got to make sure it's Phaedra going. Like, he feels defeated at this point, and I think he needed to not feel like, even if you are defeated, you got to be like Phaedra and not show it. And I think that's what Dan didn't do as well, while Phaedra is kind of killing that. So, CT is next. He voted.
Oh, never mind. Go ahead.
No. CT is next, and he voted for Dan. Shereé is next. She voted for Dan. Bergie's next. He voted for Dan. Says his name is still on his chalkboard, like he told him it would be. Kate is next, and she went with Dan. Says she hasn't been here long enough, so she really doesn't have a lot to go off of at this point. And then MJ is last and voted for Dan, saying he was one of her first votes. She thinks that he did his best to fly under the radar. And if he isn't a traitor, she's going to lose her shit because they have no idea who else could be a traitor at this point. And this, of course, means Dan has sadly received the most votes. He's therefore banished from the game. He then reveals to everyone if he is a faithful or a traitor. He says he's been on Big Brother twice, and he thought he was pretty good at that game. No one's ever written his name down in 2 seasons. A lot of people did here today. But unfortunately for him,
that's true, though. That's true. Like, he's only had his name written for votes and to win.
Yeah. So unfortunately for him, he is a traitor, and everyone is overjoyed that they finally caught one because obviously, you know, they have been wrong the entire time, and they finally got one here. Phaedra says that Dan learned tonight not to pull those kind of shenanigans, and Dan then gives a little retrospective here. We'll talk more about Dan's game once we get to the postmortem, but he says that he can see why not many people have gone toe-to-toe with Phaedra, and one, she shredded him tonight at the round table. He's been in retirement for 10 years. It took a very special game like the Traitors to break him out of it, but in this game, you can't make one mistake, and he made a huge one tonight, and yeah, immediately he knows that he fucked up, and that's the end of Dan, which we'll talk more about him, like I said, in the postmortem. But Trishelle then says something very interesting here. She says that Dan waited so long to say anyone's name, and at that point, he called out Phaedra. She thinks that he knew they needed to be fed one, and she now actually thinks that Phaedra's a traitor, and nobody is even suspecting it. And I'm not sure. Do you think maybe she's thought this from the beginning and just didn't want to say anything, or do you think that, like, Dan convinced her? Like, what do you think?
With that, I could see, like, Trishelle I could see her, like, waiting till at least maybe next episode to, like, spread info, like, to the Alliance and such.
Yeah.
Like, she probably wanted to just, for now, keep it to herself, but then, but she's like, okay, yeah, maybe Dan has, like, a point here, so maybe I mean, are we shocked she's going after her?
No, I mean, this is
the way she went after Peppermint for no reason.
Yeah, so Trishelle's now on to Phaedra. I don't know if this has any weight whatsoever. I don't know if Trishelle's even going to be able to do anything, considering the power that, like, Bergie and Peter have in that group. But we'll see. I mean, it seems like she's now on to Phaedra, based on probably very minimal stuff, because, again, this is the same person that was on to Peppermint. So I don't know if anyone's going to take what she's saying seriously, but we'll have to see. So
yeah, we'll see. It's really, like, hard to say.
Yeah, because I mean, especially with, like, how she went about Peppermint, like, I would not take anything Trishelle says seriously. I would not think that, like, Trishelle's somebody to really, like, you know, latch onto for information, because she went off very faulty information for Peppermint being a traitor. So Kate tells them that they should all go celebrate. They all toast to correctly guessing a traitor. Bergie says it feels absolutely wonderful to banish a traitor. John then compliments Phaedra on how she carried herself and asks if she had any advance notice of what was going to be said. She says no. She says she had no idea he is the bigger gamer, but now they know why the votes were going like that. Again, just amazing the position that Phaedra's in, having been called out, and people, like, praising how she handled that, even though she was literally just called out as a traitor. They don't care. They think she handled it so well. Phaedra can't possibly be a traitor. So again, just amazing job all around. I'm so impressed by how she's playing this game.
Oh, she's just, like, killing it socially.
Yeah, so the Alliance of Faithfuls, that's not an alliance, but very clearly is
Not
an
an
alliance
alliance.
with Bergie, Peter, Kevin, Trishelle, and John. They talk about how the traitors have lost twice today with no murder or banishment. Bergie is confident one of them will be murdered tonight 100%. Peter says he has no idea what the nickname should be for them, but it's becoming very obvious. And Kevin says they've got rid of Dan, so Parvati should be next. I mean, this reminds me of like when we're watching a Big Brother season and we're like tired of an alliance and they're like they're like feeling themselves, they're feeling like they're in power, and they're like, what should our name be at this point? You know, we all feel like we're in this great position. Like they're so overly cocky, and it's so obvious what all of them are doing. Like they think they're really like doing something crazy here with like coming together, but like it's so obvious that they're working together. I'm very interested to see how this
Like,
plays out.
oh, yeah, like literally, I mean, we'll see. Like, they could be one of them could be the next to go or the next target for murder. But like, it's very entertaining to watch. But like,
Yeah.
they're already like getting sussed out.
Yeah. So Peter says the traitors fell into a trap. He has this group of faithfuls that he has trust in, and he will try to survive as long as he can. The rest of the cast recognizes, like, oh my God, the 5 of them are gaming. What's going on here? So the rest of the cast walks in. Kevin is talking about banishing her, and Parvati says, imagine a secret meeting of the Not Alliance, and they all deny
Oh,
it.
I love this so much
Yeah.
when they all just like go sneak up on their conversation.
So Parvati asks Peter if he's going to control this game till the end of time, and he's a real bloodhound. And Peter says he's trying to win. And I love his answer. He's like, "Oh, I'm just trying to win here. What do you want from me?" So he says it's just a bit weird. They all come together and shut the door. It just puts off a lot of people by doing that. Parvati says those 5 have made it clear they're going to stick together no matter what. It's really her versus Peter, and she will take that bachelor down. Do you think that the rest of the house like is going to come together and like try to take down this 5?
I mean, I could see like Kate. I could see Kate doing it. And like I could see a Sandra too, because
Yeah.
I mean, Sandra's also trying to stay social,
Mhm.
kind of like Phaedra, but like Sandra's more just like there for herself. So I mean, I could see like because they all
Yeah.
snuck up on their conversation and spied on it. So I could see them coming together, but we'll see what happens.
Well, so the people that are not in that alliance, it's Kate, Sandra, MJ, Phaedra, Parvati, and CT, and also Shereé. So, I mean, that is a pretty strong group. I feel like they could easily like align together and like just try to take out one of the 5. Like, it doesn't even matter if they don't think they're a traitor. They might just do it to like even the score. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out moving forward. Is this 5 going to be actually relevant? It really seems like they are. I think it's crazy that like they think they can be this alliance and that no one's going to suspect it when it's like so obvious the way they're going about it. But yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see how this plays out. But even more interesting with the wrinkle thrown in with this Traitors turret that we have going on. It's a very, very interesting direction that this is heading.
Yes, so good. All right. So after losing one of their own, Parvati and Phaedra go to meet each other, and Phaedra says she is pissed, and if she wasn't a Christian woman, she would have ripped his heart out. And
Yep.
Parvati says she felt very vulnerable, and Phaedra tells her there is an alliance in the castle gunning for the both of them. And the ringleader is Peter, and Parvati says he's a real blue blood on the scent, but he's not powerless tonight. Because they have a murder to make, and Phaedra asks if they should just do the obvious and kill him, and Parvati says she doesn't think it makes sense to do that in this game because the target is already on her, and Phaedra says she doesn't know if she has a choice.
And do you agree that like it's not a good idea to just like murder Peter here?
Yeah, honestly, if they were gonna murder someone, I think they should just go for, like, someone who's with him, like a Bergie
Mhm.
or a John or a
Yeah.
Trishelle or because like, Peter's someone who should go during a round table.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think because it's too obvious if he went as a murder.
Yeah, it's like don't give him what he wants. Like Peter keeps saying
Mhm.
like I'm going to be murdered, I'm going to be murdered. Like don't give
Yeah.
Peter what he wants here, like murder one of his allies. I honestly think Trishelle is the move here cuz that's the one people would
Mhm.
like suspect the least.
Yeah,
Um
I agree.
but everything changes with something else that happens here.
Alan then knocks on the door and tells them that with Dan banished and their numbers down to 2, they have a choice
Sorry,
of
I'm
either murdering a
knocking on the door.
faithful or recruiting someone to join them as a traitor.
door.
Or recruiting someone to join them as a traitor. 'Cause, like, Peter's someone who should go during a round table. Yeah, honestly, if they were gonna murder someone, I think they should just go for, like, someone who's with him, like a Bergie or a John or because like, Peter's someone who should go during a round table.
Yeah. Sorry, I was
Hello.
knocking on the door.
Oh, I thought you were fixing something. Are you asking me to fix my camera or something?
No, I was knocking. I was trying to knock on the door like Alan.
Oh, yeah. If they wish to seduce a faithful, all they have to do is write their name on an anonymous invitation, and he will deliver it to them in secret. And that faithful does have a choice of either saying yes or no. If they say yes, they will join them tonight, but if not, they will remain as a faithful. And if they choose to recruit, there will be no murder. And he tells them to choose wisely because after tonight, nothing will be the same again.
Yep.
Oh, so great.
Yeah, I mean, I think we knew obviously recruitment was probably coming because obviously Dan's gone and they want to make sure there's enough traitors.
Yeah.
But this could not have come at a better time. Like this is the time
I
to
know.
recruit somebody after you have this moment of like, you know, having that 5 and having a bunch of people left out of it. Like this is definitely the time to recruit. And I really am excited to see how this plays out.
Oh, me too. They both are very unsure on what to do, and Parvati says they should recruit to shake it up, take a risk, and roll a dice. And she asks Phaedra who she'd choose, and she brings up Peter, and she said as the person to recruit and start turning the tables around on these people who he's been working with.
Yeah, and I mean, here's the thing. I don't think this is a great move for Parvati because I think he could still very easily expose her here and like have even further information to like take out Parvati. But I mean, this is like the kind of dastardly evil move that like is like just so great for Peter. Like this completely could tarnish his game. I personally think Peter would be a terrible traitor with like how obvious he's playing as a faithful.
I
So
know.
like I'm very excited to see how
I'm
this
just
goes.
more. I mean, I'm here for the entertainment.
Yeah.
Even if it's bad, like game wise, but well, like for him, but like, oh my god.
Well, I think Parvati kind of sees as like, I'm already probably going next week. How can I make this as chaotic as possible? How can I make sure that Peter doesn't win? This is exactly the way to go about it.
Oh yeah. Parvati says she wants the one person that has been casting suspicion on her side.
Yep.
There is a possibility he would throw her under the bus, so that is a risk. And Phaedra says that just because they do doesn't mean other people will forget.
Yeah, exactly.
And she says, and she says they won't anyways. Her fate is her fate, and she's really good at surviving. And Phaedra says she just doesn't know if she can trust Peter. And Parvati says it would be so fun to recruit him and turn the most blue blood faithful detective against his own posse.
Yep.
And watch him murder his friends, and she laughs and says if they want to recruit the crazy bachelor pilot, and she asks if she's on board because she's had a tough and she's says she is, but she's on her deathbed while she's going to the hospital, and Parvati is in the ICU, and she's about to flatline, so do what she wants to do and she will follow.
And that in an episode of like amazing Phaedra quotes was probably
So
the funniest line of the episode for
I
me.
loved
Her
it.
saying like, "I'm just going to the hospital." Like you're very much like about to flatline.
Oh, it's amazing. I love it so much.
Yeah.
Parvati says Peter is a full-on bloodhound. She wants him on her team and wants him working with her, but if they've chosen the wrong person, it could be a death sentence for a game.
Yep.
Peter then receives the invitation and he says this is the smartest move for the traitors to do this right now because no one would suspect him doing this right now. And everything in his mind is telling him to win this game. And if he doesn't take this, he doesn't see why they wouldn't murder him. And so his decision, obviously, however, we do not get to see as the episode ends there.
I mean, he's obviously gonna accept this. Like, I don't see why he wouldn't. It doesn't really make sense because, like, if he doesn't, he's absolutely murdered next. Like, there's no scenario in which he doesn't accept this and he isn't murdered. Like, he has to accept this here. And I'm just like really excited to see how he's gonna be as a traitor because I just feel like he's gonna be so bad.
Yeah. Oh, I think he's gonna be terrible because, like, why do I feel like if people find out he's a traitor, it's gonna be like some people like his alliance might be bitter, like the certain people at Shereé.
I mean, maybe I could potentially see that.
Tony says, "Well, there's one scenario."
Yeah, exactly. Like, there's literally only one scenario here, and that's him accepting. Like, Peter is like very cocky right now, but he's not cocky enough to decline this. Like, that's not gonna happen.
Like he kind of has to.
Yeah.
He can banish Parvart at the next round table.
Yeah, I mean that's
Parvati.
probably what he's gonna do. I would assume. He's probably still going to end up going for Parvati. I don't see Parvati not leaving next episode. Unfortunately, I think she's probably fucked.
Yeah. Unless she can turn things around, but we'll see.
I mean, just who does she get? Like, that's the thing. Like, who does she get on her side that actually like votes with her and would be a majority? Like, I don't think
she needs to talk. I think she needs to talk to like Sandra. She needs to talk to Kate. People like that.
Yeah, Sandra and CT are probably the people that like she needs to get on her side. I just feel like it's gonna be kinda hard. So you know.
If he doesn't accept, he can banish Parvati.
It doesn't matter. The thing is, like, it doesn't matter if he accepts or not. Like, if he accepts, he can still banish Parvati. They're not gonna know he's a traitor. So I don't think it matters if he doesn't accept. So
definitely.
Like, I get what you're saying. I don't think it matters if he accepts or not. I think it's more about, in my opinion, I think it's more about if he accepts and tarnishes his game, because I think he probably will.
I think so.
Especially because like he's been so all in on this 5 and like trying to get them to the end and like trying to make sure he's the most faithful out of everybody.
And he's been like, oh, I just want traitors out. Like, but him being
and now he's got to switch it up because he is one of them, probably.
I think it'd be so messy.
Yeah.
Oh god, it's gonna be so entertaining.
Oh yeah. I feel like he's gonna be like Christian level bad.
It's gonna be so great TV.
No, I don't think he does, to be honest. I don't think he has to go after Parvati. I think it's the obvious thing to do, but I do think with how adamant he was, it would be weird if he like switched it up. I think his alliance would start to recognize like, oh, he's switching it up now. I don't really understand this. I think his move would be to go for someone outside of his 5, obviously, like go for a CT, go for a Sandra. Like he could, if things work out with Parvati and he's able to actually like work closely with her, he could do something where it's like, well, I was unsure about CT, but CT said something really weird to me last night, and now I'm not really sure about him. Because I do think Peter's in a position where his alliance will just go with what he says. Like, he tells them something, it's like, okay, we're after CT now. Like, if that's the person he wants out.
In a way, I could see them just... Yeah, his alliance literally just, like, follow him, except, well, now Trishelle is after Phaedra, but, like, I don't think that would go anywhere.
No, I don't think so either. I think Peter, Bergie, they have the most power right now in that alliance. And I think whatever they want is probably what happens. So there is a scenario where he can work with Parvati. I just don't see it happening, but we'll see.
Yeah.
But anyway, we have one last thing to talk about, and that is the post-mortem, which Ali is going to start off talking about here.
All right. So with Bergie's failed murder, Parvati starts off by saying she didn't want to murder Bergie, but Dan really wanted it. And Bergie has said her name at the round table, so she was down to do it. She talks about how Peter told her he had the shield, but she immediately thought he could be lying to her. They all walked right into Peter's trap like little mice, and the cage was dropped, and she didn't know how to get herself out of this.
Yeah, I mean, this was absolutely Dan's fault. Like, Parvati tried to warn him that, like, this wasn't the right move, and he still did it. And
he should have just listened to her.
Yeah.
Dan says he initially got some pushback for trying to murder Bergie.
As he should.
I almost said Boogie.
Oh, no, I hope not.
No. But
we don't even mention that person.
Oh, God, no. Yeah. So Dan says he initially got some pushback for trying to murder Bergie because there was always the chance in some way he could have the shield. When he saw him walk into breakfast, he couldn't hide the disappointment, and he knew right away Peter was the mastermind behind this bait and switch. When he looked him in the eyes, he felt he underestimated him.
Yeah, and I mean, that's really one of Dan's biggest issue this season is that he underestimated, like, a lot of people in the castle. He just assumed that, like, well, these people have never played a reality show. They're not going to do well at this. And it's like, you can't suspect that. Like, it could be, like, literally, it could be the most random person. Like, you could not have told me before this season that Peter Weber was going to be one of the most dangerous players.
I know.
That's where we are.
Yep. It's just interesting. It's just silly and funny that how things like this work.
Yeah, and that's why, like, I think moving forward, if you are a traitor, like, you gotta be suspicious of everybody. You
Yep.
can't possibly think like, oh, this person's never gonna go after me. This person's always gonna stay loyal to me. Like, I think that really was Dan's biggest issue, is that he severely underestimated like a lot of people.
Yeah, he definitely did, but I mean, I'm glad he's self-aware, but, like, yeah, he just needs to not underestimate people.
But it's also like very much, it's easier to say that in hindsight than like, you know.
Yep. So, Phaedra says she really thought Bergie was just such a great young man. So personal, sweet, and innocent, and she gave him the nickname of Bergalicious. She talks about how they all figured out Dan and Parvati, but she can't be a mule, so it would have worked for her if they had told her.
Yeah, exactly. Like, even if they had told her what was happening, she wouldn't have let it happen. So, getting to Dan's banishment here, Phaedra again just comes in with some killer lines here. She starts off by calling him Dirty Dan, says he led to his own demise. He was weird and strange, acting, never talking to anyone. And that kind of personality trait will not work like that in this environment. You can't be too social, but you also can't be a recluse and act like a creepy man, as she calls him.
Oh my god.
Everyone kept saying he didn't share or talk about the game and looked suspicious, and she really tried to help him, that he needed to say something to someone, but he just wouldn't budge. She brings up how when the round table happened, he basically said that she was a traitor, so from that point on, he can go to hell. She happily voted for him, was so happy to do so after he pulled that dirty move. She broke the chalk, and if she got up, she probably would have broken him, but it is a game. So Parvati says she for sure thinks it didn't feel good for Dan to get banished and have her and Phaedra turn on him, but she had to because everyone was, and if she didn't, it would have looked really bad for her, and sticking her neck out would have just completely exposed her as a traitor. And I agree. I think honestly, Parvati should have done more, like in terms of like dragging Dan. I think that would have done, honestly, would have paid off in dividends for her. But she was honestly, I don't think she dragged him enough as a traitor. I think she needed to be a little bit more. She just needed to be a little more adamant about Dan going, and it felt like she really wasn't until she realized, oh, Dan's really going here. So Dan then talks about how there's been a lot that's gone terribly wrong for him in a very short period of time. Historically, in a game like this, he'll create an elaborate bomb and speech and walk away and let the chaos ensue. Here, he cannot leave the round table. He has to answer every word he says. That's a difficult position for him to be in. He wanted to offer up Phaedra and take a shot at her at the round table because she's so unsuspecting, and he really thought he was going to catch her off guard. And he thinks that he did, but what he didn't expect was to get all of her decades of legal expertise thrown at him. He says he's played games like this before. He's just been able to kind of walk around people and make them dance and pull the strings. And Phaedra took those strings and cut them out right in front of his face. And standing up in the circle of truth with Alan was a huge moment for him because it's really the first time playing any of these games that he's actually been caught and that he's ever had a single vote cast against him.
Crazy.
But he had so much fun playing this game. He was willing to accept his fate. When he finally said he was a traitor, it was like a burst of energy collapsed and sheer enjoyment for the faithful, says they finally call one after so long. And in a weird way, he was kind of happy for them because they finally got him, but he wishes that it wasn't him. And that is how we end this postmortem. So
yeah, it was really short compared to the other ones.
I mean, yeah, no one got murdered, so that's
I know.
Why. I'll say this about Dan. I think that coming into this, Dan was always going to have a tough road. Like, there was no scenario in which Dan was going to get to this game and not at least be accused of being a traitor. We even said, like, prior to this season, like, Dan's being a traitor is the most obvious thing. There's no reason why he shouldn't be. If he's not, like, he's not going to do well. I don't think he was fully prepared for what he was signing up for. I think he went into this thinking that I can just play like I've played in Big Brother. He's really only played one game before, and I think we really just kind of saw the effect that that has on somebody that hasn't played different games beyond this. And I think in general, well, I mean, him murdering Bananas didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. Like, that really was just because, like, Bananas was a threat, probably would have gone.
Yeah, Bananas was just like a really early on threat because he probably could have sussed them out.
Yeah. Well, I think Bananas is similar to Peter, where like I think Bananas would have done something crazy like Peter did. So I think in hindsight, it was a good idea to get rid of Bananas.
Yes, Johnny Bananas is a clown, but he also is a little bit cocky.
Yeah. But no, I think with Dan, like he went into this thinking like, he knew what he needed to do. And I think his biggest issue was that it really just seems like he only has one style of gameplay, and that gameplay has worked up to this point. He's played 2 Big Brother seasons in which the casts were super chaotic. They were all coming for each other's necks. So he could kind of sit back and just watch the chaos ensue, and it worked out for him, but not every cast is going to be like that. And I think he assumed that this cast was going to be like that, and it just wasn't. It was far more competitive. Everybody was coming for each other. And it's also important to note, all the chaotic players kind of went in a row. Like Ekin-Su was very chaotic. Janelle was kind of chaotic. Max was very chaotic. So now it's the people who are less chaotic and more strategic.
With Janelle, like she always does something like she kind of to screw up her game.
Well, yeah, but she's also like a super chaotic player. And I think the problem is like, they're going to start looking at the people that are more quiet. And Dan was just so quiet the entire time. Like he really didn't do a great job at, and I agree. I mean, I 100% agree. Like, I think even if he wasn't a traitor, he would have been a threat. And I think Bananas, that's the same thing. I think if honestly, if roles were reversed, I think Dan could potentially be first boot. Because I
could honestly see if Dan was a faithful, I do see him kind of working with like Peter's group.
Probably, yeah. I think
because like Peter, because like they said, they kept saying like how close they were. So I mean,
yeah, I think Peter, but I think the problem with Dan is that he was just way too quiet, just wasn't really giving any information, and he kept needing to change that up. And I kept saying like, I think he can. I think Dan can turn things around. He just never really did. He continued to be extremely brief with his information. He gave the same just like nothing answers every time, and it just really ended up catching up to him. And it really sucks, because I think that if he would have done what he did with Phaedra in this episode like early on, it really could have worked. But I think, again, because he didn't say anything until he literally had to, it just really ended up costing him. So, yeah, I mean, I hate saying it. Like, I love Dan as a player, but I don't think he played this game very well. I don't think he knew how to really, like, change things up. And I think there's a lot of people he underestimated. He saw Phaedra as, oh, she's just a housewife. She's never played a game like this before. He didn't realize that, like, Phaedra's not somebody you want to piss off, because that's going to happen if you do. Same goes for Peter. He just saw Peter as a bachelor, but Peter is clearly way more well-equipped at playing this kind of game. He's shown it. I think, yes, he's being really obvious about it, but I don't think it's, I think it's safe to say Peter is a good strategic player. Like, he knows what to do.
Like, Dan just needed to, like, not underestimate them, because like, only a few of them have actually been on, like, actual, like, gaming shows, like Big Brother and Survivor. Like, and the other ones really haven't, besides like the challenge and such. Like,
exactly.
He just needs to not underestimate just like housewives and bachelors.
Yeah, I think that was really his. I mean, or anyone in general. I think he needed to not suspect. Don't suspect don't underestimate John Bercow either. Like, he's also super cutthroat. Exactly. Yeah, Phaedra's really a cutthroat person. And I think,
literally, you do not want to piss Phaedra off.
But here's the thing. He's already seen that side of Phaedra. Like, he's already seen that Phaedra is, like, very direct when you cross her. So, like, he should have known that, like, she was going to come for him like that. Like, she literally did that with Parvati, when she tried to go for the housewives. So, like, I don't understand why he thought he should do that. But the one thing I will say, let's not try to pretend that Dan is trying to say, like, is still trying to defend himself. He knows he fucked up here. Like, he said in so many interviews, like, this was a problem, and that he knows that he did the wrong thing, and that he absolutely, like, messed up here. Like, Dan knows that this was the wrong way to go about it, and I respect him for that. I like the fact that Dan is admitting that, like, yeah, I didn't play this right. I should have done things way differently. It does give me hope that if Dan does get to play a game like this again, he will play it a little bit differently. That being said, I don't know if he's going to. I don't know if Dan will ever play another reality game again. I think
Yeah,
he
we'll
kind of
see.
fell out of practice here.
I could see him maybe, but it's like hard to say
Yeah.
because, like, I mean, yeah, he did come out of retirement, but we shall
Yeah.
see.
But the one thing I will definitely leave this out on is, like, let's just be happy that we got to see Dan again. Like, this was just such a treat. The fact that we actually got to see Dan Gheesling play another game, even if it was only for, like, what, 6 episodes, in general, is something that absolutely should not go unnoticed. I still think it's insane that we were able to get him in this show, and the fact that he was able to be there, it was just incredible to see.
I would love to see, like, Dan and Parvati or, like, Dan and Janelle on, like, Amazing Race together.
I could see that. I could definitely see that at some point. But I also think Dan might just be done. Like, I don't know if he's going to play again. I think he's really only going to come out of retirement when it's, like, a game that, like, he thinks it's, like, worth doing it for.
Yeah.
And it's worth noting, there's actually a tweet of Dan last season being like, what the hell is the Traitors? And then flash forward to now, and he's literally on season 2. So I think that's kind of crazy. But yeah, overall,
yeah, like, because he
ooh,
yeah,
okay.
really,
He might do Deal or No Deal Island. All right, let's see.
I'm very excited for Deal or No Deal Island.
Honestly, yeah, get Deal or No Deal Island to season 2 just so Dan Gheesling can play it. That's the only reason now. This is the only reason I'm rooting for this show is for Dan to play season 2.
But yeah, I was so happy seeing Dan come out of retirement for the season. And even if he didn't do the greatest job, but I'm so happy he was a traitor because, I mean, he should just be anyway.
Oh, yeah.
Because it's Dan. And, like, he's just a king in general. Like, how can you hate on Dan?
No, yeah, I will always be a Dan fan through and through. I think this really was just a really bad example. I think this was just a really bad time. I think this was just a really bad showing for him. It's one of those things where it's like, one thing happens and then another thing happens. It really was just watching a slow train wreck. Like, it started off with him just not talking that much, and then him trying to, and then him being more and more suspicious, and then him throwing Phaedra under the bus really was just like when that train like fully collides and just explodes, and there was just no saving him at that point. So it sucks to see him go here, but again, I'm just really happy we were able to get him. This is not great for my draft. I have like almost nobody left at this point. Congratulations, baby. You're probably gonna win. But
how many do you have left now?
I don't even fucking know. I can look, but it's not looking great. It's not looking great.
I'm sorry.
It's really not looking great.
Well, don't we both have Phaedra?
We do both have Phaedra, so there's that.
And she'll probably make it to the end.
I mean, yeah, Phaedra probably winning at this point.
That was because we messed up or whatever with how many people, right?
We didn't realize there was 21, yeah.
Yeah. So we're like, let's just make her both have her.
Yeah. Well, it's also because I accidentally put 2 photos of Phaedra, so we're like, all right, cool. We'll just both take her. So but yeah, anything else you want to say about this crazy episode and what's gonna happen from here?
Oh, this
and also
is like
Dan in general.
This episode is just top tier reality TV and just so good. I mean, I did give it an A+ on my serialized, but I mean, I do say the challenge was just kind of meh, not great, but I didn't dislike it. Obviously, it was just everything else about the episode was just so freaking good. Reality TV gold. And then I was just so happy to see Dan on reality TV again. Because, like, even if he goes back into retirement for a while, I mean, we'll see. But hopefully he does more because that'd be iconic. And maybe it'd be cool if he was on Claim to Fame.
Okay, but can you just who would he get on Claim to Fame? Who's he related to?
I don't know. Nobody, but it'd be cool.
But can you just imagine if, like, he pulls a Shereé here and we see Dan on Big Brother next season? Can you just imagine?
Oh my god, yes. That'd be so good.
I'm not putting that out into the universe, but like, just imagine. Just imagine how that would be.
Could you imagine like Shereé and Dan working together on a game?
Shereé gonna play Big Brother 26?
Or no, just on any kind of game. Like if having Dan, Parvati, Shereé, and Sandra.
I mean, just the fact that Dan and Parvati work together is like insane.
I know. They were so good.
I know.
Even, I mean, the great duo, but I mean, both of them haven't been playing well, but
yeah, that's the other thing I wanted to ask you is what is the chances of Parvati surviving the next episode?
very small.
Yeah, very small.
I mean, if she can really do some damage control, get people on her side, she can maybe make it through, but it's really like small and a very little chance that she make it.
It really just comes down to like who does she get at this point? Like, yes, she could maybe get Kate, but Kate's been on her tail like literally since she walked in. Like the second that Kate walked in, she's like,
it would be interesting if she got Trishelle because like Trishelle's on to Phaedra now.
It's true. I mean, would Trishelle go against her alliance though? I don't think she would.
And she's also got her like connection with CT too.
Yes, I don't know. I think the person you need to get is a CT or Sandra. But Sandra is never gonna work with Parvati, it seems. So I don't know.
Based on what we know, like I don't know if CT would turn on Phaedra, but I mean, who knows? Maybe they would game wise.
Yeah, I mean, it also comes down to like who do you throw out that isn't Phaedra or Parvati? Like who do you throw out here? And also, I don't think Parvati would throw out Phaedra because she knows what happened when Dan did that. So, like, I don't really know what the move is here.
I think another possible murder soon is probably MJ.
Oh, yeah. She's useless.
She's just like, what is her deal? She just like, she doesn't do anything really. She's just so messy.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. But, yeah, other than that, I think we pretty much talked about all we needed to with this episode. It's going to be very exciting to see what happens. Again, just Peter being a traitor is going to be so fun to watch. I think he's literally going to be like, I see him being like Christian levels of bad. Like, I don't see him being a good traitor at all. I think it could literally like, Shereé also does nothing. I agree. But that's also why
he had more this episode, but not a lot.
Shereé does do nothing, but that's also why I think she's making it to the end because she's completely useless. So, like, I think, and I also think she, like, Phaedra wants her to be there. So I think that as long as Phaedra wants her there, she will be there. So, you know, also looking at the draft right now, I literally just have Sandra, Kevin, and Shereé aside from Phaedra, and that's it.
Oh my God.
You have literally everybody else. So congrats.
That's so funny.
Yeah. But yeah, other than that, I think we pretty much talked all we need to about the Traitors. Things to plug real quick. I did want to mention this Survivor 46. Where is it? Hold on. Give me a second here. I need to pull it up. I literally sent it to you. Did I not save it? No, I did not save it. Oh, I need to delete something. Hold on. Pull up that comment, whatever it was.
It says great show.
Great show all around. Great show all around. I agree.
Oh, yeah.
If you're talking about our podcast, thank you. I don't know if you're talking about the podcast of the Traitors, but thank you.
This season of the Traitors is just chef's kiss.
Yeah. Anyway, Survivor 46. There we go. I was looking for the background. They just announced the cast for Survivor 46. We have a cast assessment coming up probably next week. I think is probably the time we'll do it. And then we're going to try to do a draft with our friends Jen and Topher, hopefully. We'll see.
And then we'll obviously do our own draft as well.
Yeah, we'll see if we're able to do a draft. That would be fun. We haven't done a draft with somebody in a while on a stream, so we'll see how that goes.
We'll see. Depending on their schedules, because they're usually pretty busy, but hopefully we can get them.
We'll do a draft with them regardless, but if it's either going to be like on here or is it going to be just like off camera, we'll see. But yeah, like Survivor 46.
Like, is it just going to be through our text? We'll see.
Yeah, I will say, just from the brief descriptions I've seen, I haven't obviously looked too deep into it. Very solid cast all around. I'm very excited to see how this group turns out. We don't love the two people saying that they love Nick Wilson, but aside from that,
no.
it should be a very fun group. I'm very excited to see.
We do not stand Nick Wilson.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Especially coming off the heels of 45, I have a lot of excitement for 46, and also the first 2 episodes are 2 hours, so like that's exciting.
Yes.
I'm not excited to take notes, but we'll see how it turns out.
Unless we just do them live, we'll see if we're both available.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. We got works going on right now, so who knows? But yeah, anything else you want to plug? Oh, Deal or No Deal Island. How can we forget?
Obviously, like the iconic Deal or No Deal Island. That's going to be fantastic TV.
Oh yeah, we do have the first 20 minutes of the first episode that we haven't watched yet. That's on Peacock, so maybe we should check that out at some point.
Oh my god! And then obviously,
I'm actually hearing from people that it actually looks pretty good. So
good.
It might actually be good. We'll see.
Hopefully.
I don't know.
We're probably gonna do like the Trust soon because it's only 8 episodes. We'll probably watch that and do the season review soon, as well as
I heard that ends like very disappointingly. But
it's only 8 episodes. It's only 8 episodes though, so we can easily binge it and do a review.
Yeah.
And then we'll probably do our other season reviews at some point soon. And yeah, but right now, obviously, just stay tuned for the next episode of The Traitors and our cast assessment and draft for Survivor.
Yes, very excited for both of those. Also, over on my channel, don't know when it's going to be out, but we are doing the What We Watch series, talking about all the shows we watched in 2023. Eventually, also talking about shows we watched in 2024. We have a few that we watched in January that we will eventually talk about. But I'm going to wrap this up soon because my voice is shot for some reason. I don't know why. I need to stop talking so much. But other than that, that's pretty much it for this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Remember, couples who podcast together, stay together, and be careful with your voice. Drink lots of water before your voice goes out.
Go get your tummy.
Yes, we will see you guys later.
Love you guys.